Well, hello to another build guide. This time we're looking at an Ancestral Warchief build. This is actually my original beta character that I first started the game with. I've only ever got him up to level 90 because I've tried to play all different types of builds over the years and fucked every single one of them up now until this build. And this build I'm actually quite happy with, mainly because I'm pretty well itemized. But anyway, without any further ado, I'll get into the nitty gritty. So obviously, this is a Warchief build. Um, Obviously, we're using the Chieftain Mastery Ascendancy class, but I'll get into more detail of that stuff when I go through the skill tree shortly. First of all, let's just have a look at. So obviously, we're dropping dual Warchief totems, and I'll do some gameplay at the end. I've got this T11 map all teed up, ready to roll. 20%. Blah, blah, blah. 20% quality as well. Fuck me. Alright, I put some chisels into that one. So, how did I build this? First of all, I'm running with the 6-link Doomsawer. So, the reason why I like Doomsawer is for any socketed melee gems, which this probably isn't going to apply to because none of these are melee abilities. Or is Warchief a melee ability? It is a melee ability. So, they get 15% increased area of effect. Any socketed red gems, you get a 10% damage as fire damage, physical damage as fire damage buff. So any of these gems that are doing phys damage, you get a 10% physical damage buff as extra fire damage, which is pretty cool. The other benefit of this item is that it gives you 12% attack speed, it gives you base phys damage, percentage phys damage, and not that you need it, because we won't be using accuracy. We're going to use resolute technique on this build, so we hit 100% of the time. But it's got 470 accuracy if you so wanted to run a crit variant of this build. So that's my Doomsawer. This sword, it's not too expensive. 6 links, this is probably going to be a very expensive sword. In fact, let's have a look and see what this is selling for. I think this might link to the Abyss market because I haven't got this set to assembly. So just on the Abyss League, it's 5 Exalt. It's probably double that on the standard market. So this isn't a cheap build by any means, but it is quite a good one. Obviously, I've got a Devoto's Devotion, Nightmare Bassinet. I still need to do some more Uberlab farming with this character just because I'm playing in the season and whatnot. I sort of pick this one up in between seasons and play with it, so I do what I can. My next thing is I have a Blood Grip, so this adds more base phys damage, that 10 to 20 damage multiplier. Gives me a lot of regen, gives me more regen from Flask, and I don't take any extra bleed damage while I move as well. So sometimes this character can get a bit lit when it comes to taking damage. Also, obviously, because I only have 4100 health, which is not necessarily great, but it works based on the amount of damage mitigation I've got on this build. So rings, I've got a Lehip of All Iron Ring, which gives me base phys damage. This is actually quite a good roll because I've got 23% all resist, I've got 14% increased rarity, 19 to all attributes, and 26% increased base damage, which is pretty OP on this ring. This is a higher roll of this ring. And I'm also using a Pyre, which has a 64% increased burning damage roll. It's also increasing my cold damage to fire damage, which is important because I'm using a hatred passive, which does cold damage. So I believe that would convert based on the ring, but I haven't done the number crunching, so don't flame me in the in the comments if I'm wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong. Anyway, for my chest plate, I'm using a brass dome. The reason why I'm using this is because I have to operate with lower health, so I need to be able to mitigate damage a lot more effectively, and this does exactly that. So I take no extra damage from critical strikes, and I have 5,500 armor, which is quite powerful. It does slow you down by 10%, but it really won't matter if you've got decent boosts with a bit of movement, with 30% movement speed or whatnot. For my gauntlets, I'm using the Meganord's Vise, which gives me 100 to strength, gives me 2% life regeneration. So again, we're focusing on this life regeneration. So this is a hybrid leech and life regeneration build. Obviously, you've got to find a blend when you're using totems, because if you run straight life regen, then you need to have a lot of health and a lot of resistance and everything, and a lot of armor. But if you're running something in between, it means you can take more of a risk with some of the gear to get a higher DPS. So Warchief totems are a little bit more of a defensive way of playing, but if you find the right blend, then it works quite well. Next of all, I've got a Doriani's Invitation, which gives me fire damage leech, because that's what we're doing. We're doing fire damage with the war totems, or Warchief totems. So it also gives me armor, it gives me further resistances to cold and lightning, it gives me more strength, which increases my health a little bit more. And finally, my boots, which I have crafted, have 30% movement. They're just standard Armageddon Spark Antique Greaves. I've got a 70 health, like I could roll that health a bit better, but I've got 42% to fire resistance, 50 to strength, more armor, 26%, 24% increased armor, 30% movement speed, and lightning resist as well. So that's my itemization. I've got 3 Eternal Flasks, which have 50% increased amount recovered on each of them. One removes freeze, one removes poison, and again, one removes freeze and chill, because you don't want to get chilled with this build. Like most builds, you just don't want to be stopped. I'm not using Kaon's roots because it's too slow. Otherwise, I can't move around nice and nimbly, and this build relies on good mobility and placement. In fact, good mobility and placement is key. The next thing that obviously I'm running is a Lion's Roar, just for that knockback and also the armor and physical damage, and also I just like running at Series Promise because of the chaos damage. It's quite powerful. That's my itemization. Some of these items are cheap. I know these Lahoops sell for a little bit sometimes. In fact, I can tell you, I think they're worth 4 to 5C on the current market. Come on. Yeah, this is on Abyss League though. Brass Domes can be a little bit expensive depending on the league that you're playing in. Once you start getting stuff like, yeah, so just this one's a 4 link is worth 22 chaos minimum. These are generally not cheap and standard, but I think they are cheap right now. Doriani's are normally cheap because they're quite easy to get. You just need to run the get series runs, yeah, so 1 hour. So yeah, that's pretty much. So that's pretty much the itemization. So the next thing I'll probably go through is the skill tree allocation. So what's going on here? Just ignore this, I haven't reset this yet, but there have been no changes to the skill tree between the seasons. So first of all, we're running Marauder. So we're going to come and pick up these life and armor nodes. We're not going to worry about this regen node, it's no point. Based on our gearing, we need to pick up some nodes in here. So you want to come across the Warrior's Blood, pick up your Armor Master, pick up your Diamond Skin, and then based on your gearing, cold and lightning resist always helps. So then we want to go up, pick up Heart of the Warrior, up to Born to Fight. Then we want to come up to this strength node here and pick up Totemic Mastery, so our totems get more OP. Then we want to dual socket some shit. So obviously we've got some fire damage, some attack speed, some melee damage. So from that just alone, I'm getting 26% increased damage, which is fucking nuts. Then I've moved across to the left. Yeah, you need to do this first. So before you take these up here, you can take these, but yeah, you want to get to the Ancestral Bond as quickly as you can with totem builds, because you want that second totem. So you're going to go from, once you pick up this dual socket, you're going to want to come across. These are just additionals. I needed intelligence because my character's quite dumb and can't use some of the gems or gear. So you want to come across to the left. You want to go down, pick up Resolute Technique, and then you want to go up, up. Ignore this node until you pick up Ancestral Bond. Once you pick up Ancestral Bond, the world is your oyster. So then you want to come down, pick up this Devotion node for health. If you need the intelligence, pick up this Ancestral Knowledge node. Then you want to come back down, as long as you've got this Resolute Technique, come back to these nodes here and pick up to Sanctity, pick up your Discipline and Training, get your Retribution, and get your Amplify, because you want to increase that AoE damage. The whole idea is to hit as many enemies as you can with the totems and basically stay out of the fight. So you just want to be able to wipe the entire screen as quickly as you can. Once you've picked up those nodes, then you want to come back to where you picked up Resolute Technique. Now I've went down and picked up Barbarism, then I went down and picked up another dual socket, so I've got something that gives me 18% increased armor, reduced mana costs, and some resistance again. Then I've come down and picked up Juggernaut, and I've also picked up the Razor's Edge, which gives me 30% increased physical damage with swords, because obviously I'm using a sword. That's quite beneficial to me. Then I've moved down, picked up the Ironwood node for totem damage, so it's given me a 25% increase with totems, and also buffing damage resistance of my totems. And then I've picked up Bloodless, just to get that 8% extra life. And then where I've also went, after that, because these are the priority nodes you get, you need to focus on these totem damage nodes. I've also went back to Warrior's Blood. I've then picked up the Scion life nodes to get the 14% increased maximum health. And then I've worked my way down into the Master of the Arena, Art of the Gladiator, picked up these nodes here, picked up Destroyer, and then worked my way down into the Wrecking Ball and Executioner sword two-handed nodes. And then that's pretty much it for now. At least this is up to level 90. So this is my ideal spec, and I've played with this quite a fair bit. You can probably drop this area of effect node out. You probably don't need this, but the reduction in mana is quite good because this character doesn't do so well with mana nodes. There's not a lot of mana regeneration that's happening in here unless you itemize it, and you really don't want to focus on itemizing it. So you ideally want to reduce the amount of mana that you're spending at the end of the day with this build. Perfect world scenario, you get a Hezmond's Blood Axe, which is what I want to do. 6-link that, use that as your item, which then gives you blood magic for all your abilities, but I haven't yet got to that. And if you were using a Hezmond's, which I'll show you the item that I'm talking about. So this is Hezmond's Blood Axe. So if you were using this, which is what I want to use, which is what I want to replace this Doomsaw with next, I just need to 6-link this bastard. This then makes all attacks come out of your health pool. So once you've done that, then all you would need to do is respec. In my case, I would respec these 3 points out, and then push them down into this blood magic node to remove all mana. Or actually, no, I don't want to do that. Sorry, scratch that. I don't want to do that. I'd actually get rid of these 3 nodes here and move them all into 5% base health nodes, so that I've got a higher threshold in my health pool. So that's pretty much my overall build spec. As I said, I've played around with this a fair bit. This works well for me. You can tailor this depending on the item. Obviously, if you're using an axe, you can't use these sword nodes. You would be using these axe nodes here, like cleaving or slaughter. But again, up to you what you use. I'd suggest using a two-handed, but the other thing with totem builds is face breakers work quite well as well. So, mean to say, if you've got the currency, then, and if you want to run a face breaker build, then by all means do that. Just remember, in most face breaker builds, you mitigate your damage with a lightning coil, and then you've got to find a way to find more lightning resist. So, just an FYI, I might do a build guide on that at some point. So, anyway, from there, as far as our ascendancies go, I've picked up the Chieftain Ascendancy because I want that leech on my totems, which is this Hinakora Death's Fury, which gives me 1% fire damage leached as life. And I'll go through the gems that I use next, but for every physical damage hit, I'm proccing fire damage, and fire damage is giving me life leech, which is basically keeping me alive. The longer the fight goes, I can survive for longer. So like Uberlab and things like that are quite easy. Obviously, I picked up Nagamu's Flame, which is more burning damage. Then I want this Aro Hongui Moon Presence, which means that enemies near the totems deal less damage, and they also take more fizz damage and fire damage. And then Tokuhama, which is basically your fucking tower, your totems don't give a fuck about fire, it does nothing to them. They get 50% increased armor, and they taunt every dickhead around them, so they're like, hey, come and hit me. And so you can just run around, hence why you need a little bit more movement speed. So that's my ascendancies. A lot of people are going berserker with these builds as well because of the leech. I like using the Chieftain because of the fire damage, and it works quite. So far, it works quite well because this just jibs enemies to fucking Kingdom Come. All right, so the next thing that look at that fucking armor. It's got a dick guard right there. Anyway, the next thing that I'll go through is gems. So gems, we've got in our main 6 link. I've got Ancestral Warchief, leveled to level 20. Added fire damage, faster attacks, main support, because you want to focus on that fire. You want to focus on fizz damage. I've also got melee physical support, which gives me more physical damage. And I've got elemental damage with attack support. And I've played around with the gems a lot with this. This seems to work the best. You basically want as much fire damage as you can add on top of your fizz damage, because that's going to continually leech for you. Next of all, I've got in my headpiece, I've got Hatred, I've got Punishment, which I think I've got set as a switchable Blasphemy Curse. I've got, no, sorry, I don't. I have this set as a damage debuff to enemies that I cast on. I've got a level 2 on Enlighten, which needs some farming, but yeah, this just enhances these abilities a little bit. And then Herald of Ash as well. So obviously Herald of Ash is converting my physical damage into extra fire damage. So that's again more damage that I'm doing that is leeching back to my health pool. So in my chest, I've got a stone golem. I just like having that. Some minion resist, fortify minion speed. I just like my stone golem to be able to survive because those bastards die really quickly. And I've also got Enduring Cry, which I don't actually use, but I've got in there just in the case that I'm fighting a harder boss, or I just want to sustain for a bit longer. Then obviously I've got my custom damage taken gems. So I've got Molten Shell, I've got Immortal Call, and I've got increased duration. So my Molten Shell and my Immortal Call last for longer when I do take damage. And then I'm Blood Magicking Leap Slam, Clarity, and faster attacks for Leap Slam, obviously. So I can go like this. It can just be like this big ultimate tank crit that just jumps up and down. But yeah, that's pretty much this build in a nutshell. It's quite fun. It can be a little bit slower to farm things, but it's good for single damage targets. It does quite well against bosses. But I'll load up a map and yeah, we'll have a look and see how this rolls. So this is a T11 map, just because that's the only map I can find sitting around, and they're generally quite good as an example sort of map, but this can do pretty much all content. As you can see, it basically just mixes enemies around. I don't even know what modifiers are on this. I do all sorts of hand. A little bit of slowdown there, but yeah, basically if you're placing in, you just place and run away. And like that looks like they're doing pierce damage to me. Damn, Master Set, that's pretty good. So we go kill these fuckers. Look at that. Bam. Jib. As you can see, I'm just constantly leeching health. I don't really have to worry about too much. As soon as I get hit, I regenerate. Those fuckers. Leap slam in there. There's the arena. Let's go kill the boss. I can't remember what type of boss. I think this is the dickhead lightning boss that I hate this. So, with bosses like this, you just sit it here and you just wait, do your shit and kill it. Just want to bait it back out, as you can see, it's doing quite well. There we go, that's pretty much all there is to it. That was nice and quick. And yeah, that's pretty much how this build works. Like, that was a pretty quick boss clear. I can't remember how many modifiers on this map, but I know there's quite a few. It's one taking a bit of damage down and chunks a little bit, but let's have a look. Yeah, so the boss did more damage, increased lightning damage, whatnot. So they haven't got enough modifiers to really hurt, but this character seems to push through. No matter how much damage you get, your Immortal Call pops. everything just works. And yeah, it's efficient to farm. Once you get the hang of it, it's nice and efficient. Do this. There's a breach up there, so just go and hit that fucking thing up. It does these quite well. I've done a few breach walls with it. So you do is you just chuck one in front of the other, and then it will just kill everything in the way. But nice and easy farming build. If you're doing league starters, this is usually a good league starter. If you're new to the game, Totem build is pretty good. They're fantastic for league starters because they're good for itemizing. So yeah, and I mean to say, like, you don't need to get the gear that I've got to make this work. To make it work with some really fun shit. But obviously having a 6-link Doomsire isn't a terrible thing. It's not the best item for this build, but yeah, it works quite well. So as you can see, pretty much I can just run around and just pick up all the little bits and pieces now. But get that splitter and hash. I might want to do another breach lord run. Try and get enough of that shit. But yeah, there's not much to it. It's a pretty fucking good build. Like, there are other ways to do it. I know I've seen people use Duelists for this. I've seen people use Witches. By far, my favourite way to play Ancestral Warchief is with the Chieftain. But, you know, if I run a Berserk build for next season or whatnot, it might be even better. But yeah, if you want a lazy man's build that just, you know, cruise around the map and you just smack everything real hard, you don't have to worry about doing much work. It's basically like free. It's almost like a bloody free farming build, and yeah, this is the build for you. As with most of my builds, a very low effort required. Because I like to relax when I play games. But anyway, that's all there is to it. And yeah, if you like this build guide, or if this covers off on what you needed. Oh, sorry, there is one other thing I should probably go through. Which button is it? No, we don't want that. We don't want microtransactions, MTX. There we go. There we go. So, I'm using the Soul of Linares for damage reduction, and I'm also using the Soul of Tokuhama, which means if I'm stationary, I get physical damage reduction as well. So, if I don't move, then I don't take any additional. Well, I get a damage reduction applied to me. So if I stop for any reason, with this build, sometimes if you're on a boss, you might sit in a position for an extended amount of time. So that's just a good passive to have. As you can see here, how I play, I just drop the totems in the room, run back, or block. Basically, you want to block the door. You can't melee hit with the ancestral bond for your totems. So you have to rely on the fact that your totems are doing all the bloody hard work for you. And if these guys slack off like a council worker, then you're pretty much fucked. So you want to bloody push them in the way and make them the target of all the aggro. Anyway, with that, I'll leave everyone to it. And yeah, if you like this build guide, if it makes sense, then yeah, give me a like. And if you think it's shit, obviously you'll tell me it's shit. Most people do. You're completely welcome to do that too. But until next time, have fun exiling.